In her presentation, Robyn will share the results of Tapestry's evaluation of the Prairie Organic Grain Initiative and further defining what impact POGI has had on organic farmers and the prairie organic sector. As you listen, keep in mind any aspects that you would like to know more about with respect to the evaluation results. Just so that you're ready for some questions at the end of the presentation. So Robyn McLean has been working in the field of evaluation, research, and strategy for more than a decade. She focuses on working with programs that involve collaboration and partnership and programs trying to make meaningful changes to complex systems and sectors. POGI began working with Robyn after hearing of her work with the Bauda Family Initiative on Canadian seed security. So with that, I will hand over to Robyn to start her presentation.
Thank you, Marla. So we included a version of the report, with the email. So if everyone could open that up, I'll just walk us through that, and then we'll get into any questions that anyone has about the results. So we refer to this as early evaluation results. So this is basically we've collected a lot of data, but this is not the final report for the evaluation of POGI. But we wanted to present some results and give some opportunity for discussion and understand whether people have more that they'd like to know, what we've learned from our evaluation so far. So we mentioned that we've collected information through surveys and interviews with more than 80 organic and transitioning farmers. We've had multiple conversations with people just involved in the prairie organic grain sector. We had some data from CODA that we present in this report. We have lots of program records from POGI, and we still have some information that we'll be collecting and analyzing, but this is a good chunk of it. So what we do through this early evaluation report is just present a few goals or types of outcomes that we want to see and just what results relate to each of those. So the first goal is related to collaboration. This was a major impetus for starting POGI, was to bring a number of different people across the value chain together to work together and hopefully address gaps in the sector and build on assets. So we have found that POGI has done a great job of increasing that collaboration. And here we just present a few selected quotes from people that we've talked to in the sector that basically say, they're forging a really good path. We've got a really good foundation built from POGI, and the model basically achieved what they set out to achieve. There has also been some areas of improvement that came up in the evaluation as well that we have noted and that we're working on to move forward with any work that POGI might do in the future. So we identified that we'd like some more involvement from each of the provincial partners. We'd like to see more clarity in terms of addressing those partnership challenges, and that may include written agreements or some processes being spelled out of how to work through that partnership. The second goal that we present here is the goal of developing tools that are accessible to farmers. And we just spell out a couple of different numbers of people who have used different tools. So the first one we talk about is that there's been over 27,000 users who have visited the Pivot and Grow website, and that may include some repeat visitors, but basically it's looking at the number of different IP addresses that visit the website. So it's a fairly good view of how many people have used the Pivot and Grow website between 2016 and this year. Lots of visits to the price list page, lots of visits to the business-to-business directory, and basically lots of different parts of the website have received visits, but the ones that we listed here, the price list, the business-to-business directory, the green manure toolkit, the farmer kitchen event listings are some of the highest. pages that some of the highest visits to those pages. We've also had lots of farmers attending field days and organic conferences. There's likely some repeat visitors across those events, but still lots of uptake on those events. We had 52 farmers in the nutrient management program, which was quite a bit more involved. That involved agronomists visiting and testing at least one field for soil health and working with farmers to understand what they can do to change the nutrient levels on their farm. So that was one of the more intense programs that POGI has offered. And we've also measured how many calls were coming through to the 1-800 Organic Expert line, and that was a chance for people to ask. They could call this line and ask questions about POGI more generally, or they could be connected with an agronomist. We had more than 150 calling that, and we also offered organic agronomy training, and more than 150 people attended that training. So the third goal was really about increasing the quality and quantity of grains, and that's about trying to encourage specific changes in farm management. And we measured things when we talked to farmers, either through surveys or interviews. We asked them whether or not they have made changes in just soil health practices more generally, made changes in crop rotations, seeding and harvesting practices, intercrop practices, green manure management, and there were some other types of practices that people mentioned as well. And what we tried to understand was whether they've made changes to these practices over the past few years, basically since POGI has been around, and to what extent they would say that POGI has made a difference or contributed in some way to any changes that they made. It may not be surprising to many of you that there's a lot of things that can lead to changes on a farm. And so it wasn't always a straightforward thing to ask people, what was the biggest thing that made this, that led to these changes. But we did have a lot of people saying that POGI had some direct contribution to changes that farmers have made. So we found that out of the 39 farmers that we asked that question to, 23 or 59% reported that POGI directly contributed in some way to some of those changes. So on the top of page 3, there's a graph that shows what people said. There were some 9 farmers that we talked to said that there were other things, especially other farmers or maybe other ways of practice that contributed more than POGI. There were some that said that they were planning to make changes over the next season or the next few seasons, and some just said, I'm not really sure what really led to those changes. You'll see there's some good quotes there from farmers as well who talked about what changes they've made and how POGI has contributed. And then the fourth goal we talked about is supporting those interested in transitioning. And we talk here about, we start with presenting some numbers of organic field crop acres in the prairies between 2014 and 2016. What we see that there's been a 16% increase in the number of acres dedicated to organic field crops. And just like with changes to management, as I talked about in the previous section, it's not surprising that there'd be a number of different things that contribute to the decision to transition to management or to organic. And so we're not saying that this jump in organic acreage is because of POGI, but what we tried to do is understand to what extent POGI may have supported transition or contributed in some way to that decision. And when we asked some farmers who had recently transitioned what their reasoning was for that transition, people listed things like financial considerations, reducing inputs, reducing the price of inputs, and sustainability. And many farmers said that it was helpful for them to connect or talk with other organic farmers or farmers who are already in organic management, and that may contribute to their decision. There are also a number of farmers who said that POGI was helpful for their decision, or especially farmers who who mentioned that Pogi supported their transition. So by providing information and information about that transition process and information about organic management. And then we just end again with a few quotes from farmers that talk about that process. So that is a quick summary of some of the early results that were coming out of the Pogi evaluation.